The day they towed my tractor was the day I realized I wasn't just dealing with a power-hungry HOA. I was dealing with someone who thought they owned more than rules. They thought they owned people. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, I live on 5 acres out in what used to be pure rural land, before the suburb creep started slithering in with stone mailboxes, mulch regulations, and people who complain about chickens like they're a public hazard. I never asked to be part of Oak Ridge Estates. Hell, Oak Ridge showed up 20 years after my family put down roots here. My granddad's name is still on the deed hanging over my fireplace. Anyway, this whole mess started on a Tuesday afternoon. I'd just finished putting in fence posts along the east paddock. Boots caked in clay, gloves smelling like diesel and cedar, when I come around the bend, and there it is, a flatbed tow truck backing into my gravel drive like it belongs there. And on the winch, my John Deere. Now, this wasn't just some lawn tractor. This was my post-hole digging, hay hauling, fence-pulling baby. And this guy strapping it down like it's some busted Buick left behind at a Walmart. Then I see her, across the street. Arms folded like she's posing for a dictator-themed calendar, sunglasses too big for her face, clipboard tucked under one elbow like it's a holy artifact. There she stood. Melinda Preston, HOA president, self-appointed enforcer of aesthetic values and neighborhood moral standards. To be clear, she and I had history. She once tried to cite me for using unpainted cedar on my barn, because it didn't blend with the colonial palette. I sent her a notarized exemption. She mailed back a warning. I ignored it. Then she went quiet. I thought she gave up. Turns out, she was just loading the next round. I stepped out of my truck and walked straight toward her. Calm, quiet. The last thing you do with someone like Melinda is give them volume. It just feeds him. I said, "You better hope you got good insurance." She tilted her head like a bird of prey that just spotted a mouse. "You can't leave that thing in plain view, Todd. It violates the HOA's machinery clause." I looked down at the dirt under my boots and smiled. "The clause that doesn't apply to my property?" She smirked. "It's still within visual range of the community." "Oh, so now sight lines count as jurisdiction?" She didn't answer. Just stood there while the truck driver finished winching my tractor. I turned. Didn't say another word, just walked inside. That unsettled her more than yelling ever would. What she didn't know, what made me smile as I closed the door, was that I'd been documenting everything for months. Every violation notice, every forged signature, every time she overstepped. See, that tractor? It wasn't registered to me personally. It was the property of a small LLC I run for my ranching work, which meant she hadn't just towed a tractor. She had unlawfully seized business property from private land explicitly exempt from HOA authority. And now I had her. I made 3 calls. First, to the sheriff's office, to file a theft report and provide the legal deed. Second, to my cousin Mark, an agricultural attorney with a particular dislike for power-tripping suburbanites. And third, to a former HOA board member named Doris. She quit last year after Melinda tried to outlaw wind chimes. Doris didn't just agree to help. She said, "I've been waiting for someone to take that tyrant down." Over the next few days, Melinda pranced around the neighborhood like she'd single-handedly liberated it from visual blight. She even published a picture of my tractor, with a red X over it, in the HOA newsletter titled, "Action Taken Against Industrial Encroachment." It would have been hilarious if it wasn't so surreal. A week later, she got served. First, with a cease and desist. Then, a formal notice of litigation. I made sure the courier wore cowboy boots and delivered it during her morning Pilates on the porch. She retaliated in classic HOA fashion, a violation taped to my fence for unapproved fencing material. Thing is, that fence had been there for 3 years and was made from fallen trees on my own land. She knew that. Everyone knew that. But she wanted to escalate. That's when I decided to go on the offensive. I built a digital file, called it Melinda's Greatest Hits, filled with time-stamped letters, surveillance footage, and witness statements. I even had trail cam shots of one of her minions standing on a step stool trying to photograph my compost bin over the fence. I collected emails, outdated jurisdiction maps, and screenshots from the neighborhood Facebook group, which, by the way, she moderated with the zeal of a Cold War censor. Then, I played my ace. See, the road leading into Oak Ridge Estates? The one with the stone sign, the flower beds, the decorative lampposts. The first 20 feet of that entrance actually runs across a corner of my land. My grandfather never sold that sliver when the developers came calling. No one noticed, or they did and hoped I wouldn't. Either way, I had it in writing, which meant the HOA's precious entrance sat on my property, unpaid and unauthorized. So I drafted a lease agreement, backdated, 20 years, with a modest rental rate and reasonable interest, just enough to total around $72,000. I mailed it directly to the HOA's board. I CC'd Melinda. The next day, she showed up on my property. Heels sinking into gravel, face redder than a sunburned cherry. "You're bluffing," she hissed. "Nope," I said, wiping dust off my hands. "You've been squatting on my land for 2 decades. Time to pay rent or pack up the petunias." She muttered something about getting her lawyer. I nodded. "See you in court." And oh boy, did we. The trial was something else. Her attorney looked like he'd been picked off a Yelp ad for low-budget evictions. Mine, my cousin Mark, in a BOLO tie and attitude to match. The judge, a no-nonsense rancher-turned-magistrate, didn't even pretend to hide his disdain for HOA games. We showed him the documents, the deed, the LLC registration, the forged violation letters, and then the photo, color print, full resolution. My tractor being lifted by a tow truck. And in the background, Melinda, sunglasses, arms crossed, smirking like she'd just bagged a deer. The judge turned to her and asked, "Did you personally authorize this tow?" She straightened. "As HOA president, I was ensuring compliance. On land you had no authority over?" She blinked. It was visible from the road. "You mean his road? The one built on his property?" That was the beginning of the end. We won. Hands down. Melinda was found personally liable for unauthorized seizure of business property, harassment, and defamation. She was ordered to pay damages, legal costs, and towing fees. Total, just under $40,000. But the cherry on top? We placed a lien on her BMW. It was parked partially on that same strip of road. 3 days later, the same tow truck, the exact one that hauled away my John Deere, returned. And this time, it took her luxury sedan. I watched from my porch, sweet tea in hand, sun warm on my shoulders. She came running out in slippers, screaming about legality and injustice. The driver handed her the court order like a wedding invitation. "Talk to the judge," he said. "I just follow orders." The neighborhood exploded. Turns out, my case gave others the courage to speak up. 5 families joined a civil suit against her. Turns out, she'd been forging fines, threatening elderly residents, even entering properties without permission to inspect for noncompliance. The HOA board held an emergency meeting, and in a vote of 87%, she was removed as president. Her 2 cronies resigned the next day. Melinda? She vanished, sold her house, disappeared. Rumor has it she runs a blog now called The Orderly Garden. I checked it once. Full of photos of symmetrical hedges and passive-aggressive quotes about community harmony. I closed it immediately. Gave me hives. Now, Oak Ridge is different. Better. Kids ride their bikes. Neighbors chat. We still have an HOA, but it actually helps now. Organizes potlucks, gardening clubs, free mulch days. Tom, the ex-board member who once got fined for wind chimes, runs it now. And the first thing they did? Declared my land officially outside HOA jurisdiction. Framed the document, gave it to me at a barbecue. I hung it right next to Grandpa's deed. And me? I bought a new tractor, painted it red, parked it right out front. Because now, I can. If this story hit a nerve, maybe you've tangled with an HOA bully yourself, or just think Melinda got what she deserved. Let me know in the comments. Do HOAs protect communities or just pretend to? Have you ever seen power twist into control like this? Hit that like button if you enjoy the justice. And share your own wild HOA stories down below, because you never know when the next red tractor is about to roll through.